My wife is a physician. She has no interest in business or any of these things. So like, I'm thinking, well, like, if I die in Costa Rica this weekend or get hit by a semi, is she even gonna know who our lawyer is or like our bank accounts or any of that stuff? And I only bring this up by saying like, we have to write stuff down. I mean, I'm just speaking for myself, but I suspect a lot of people think like this. We're gonna do it someday, but like, ultimately, you got to do it today. Today on the Curious Builder podcast, we had Stacy Eakman from Alair out in Washington, and great episode. The first probably half hour, 38 minutes, we dive really deep on why Stacy chose systems, and really he was a great operator, but really leveling up and having a business that has an exit strategy that can really level up your business. We're going to hear all about Alair and the Alair system, and then towards the second half of the episode, we talk about the book a little bit, Buy Back Your Time, and we get a little bit more deep on the personal stuff of what we can do from your greatest losses, what you learn from them, but also really how you can apply some of these principles to your life and to your business. So without further ado, here is Stacy Eakman. Welcome to the Curious Builder podcast. I'm Mark Williams, your host. Today is our first guest of our Smile Tour around the United States. We're going out west to Seattle to Stacy Eakman from Alair. What's up, Stacy?
Hey, Mark. How you doing?
I'm good, buddy. So for the audience that's been tuning in for the last 3 years, hopefully you know a little bit about this. This year we're going down the West Coast, and we're starting with Stacy, going all the way from Seattle to LA in Q1, and we're overlaying it with a book. This year's book is Buy Back Your Time by Dan Martell. The whole podcast is not going to be about that, but just so the audience, if you're not aware, I'll be asking Stacy a few questions about this book through the whole quarter, so all the way through April. Questions of the guests will be around this book, and so we're obviously going to dive into Stacy's business, understand a little bit about him. Stacy also leads our Curious Collective in both Seattle and LA, so we'll dive into that. Stacy, why don't you give us a quick elevator intro of who you are, what you've been doing, and we'll kind of go from there to get the audience caught up to speed with you.
Sure. Thank you. I didn't know I was the first on the tour, so what
you
an
are
honor.
First.
It's
yeah.
great. The book, it's been a while since I read it, so hopefully it's not too tough a quiz. But I'm Stacy Eakman. I live in Bellevue, Washington, which is just outside of Seattle, and I am owner operator of Alair custom home builder here in Kirkland, Washington, and also what we call a regional partner inside of Alair of Washington State and Southern California, which means that the other offices here locally in those two regions, I oversee and guide and mentor anything I can do to help grow Alair as a whole in those regions.
And you've got also the LA branch as well?
Yeah, we've got two offices down there. We've got the one in Camarillo, which is just right there outside of LA, and then also one in Encinitas, which is just north of San Diego. So we kind of bookend Southern California.
Okay. And you've been building for what, 2 decades now?
Not quite. About 15 years I started building, but Dad was a builder in Yakima, Washington, small town in eastern Washington, and so I grew up around it.
Yeah. It was funny because you and I met almost 4 years ago. This May will be 4 years. We were both at Contractor Coalition in Nashville, and I remember meeting you, and I remember thinking like, dang, this guy has got it going on. Every single question that I asked, or like Brad Levitt was talking about, you've always been a high class operator. I feel like one thing I'd really like to get out of this particular episode is, and so many of our people in our audience are interested in too, is like scaling. I feel like you've been such a systems guy, even from those first conversations. Well, I don't remember the details. I just remember the spirit of it. Like you had a very clear vision of where you wanted to go, how to get there, and how you operated. And I'd love to, dive pretty deep on those topics.
Sure. Yeah, it sounds like a tricking you back then, making it seem like I knew what was going on. But yeah, I have absolutely always had a vision for where I wanted to go. It's been bumpy, but figured it out along the way.
And at that time, you had your custom home, because at what point did you join forces with Alair? Because it was probably right after that, right?
Right after that. That was May of I guess 21 that we were there.
22, 21, somewhere in there.
I signed up and bought the license in, September of 23, and then of 22, and then we did our launch party announcement in March of 23. So that's when we
Yeah.
switched to Alair. And so before that, I was Eckman Construction and did the same thing. I built custom homes, did large scale remodels, but just, out here on my own and trying to build those systems and processes all by myself.
So let's start with that because I think I don't know a ton about the Alair family and system, and you're very passionate about it. I mean, again, what was it about their system and about their sort of approach that drew you in and said, hey, in year 13 or year 12 of your business, you're like, you know what? If I'm going to kind of scale up and do this next thing, I want to join and kind of learn from this. And I'd love to hear a little bit about your mindset and then kind of why you chose to do it. And now you're on the other side of it. You're one of the regional
Sure.
managers, and so you've kind of done this really interesting journey through their programs.
Yeah, I think, it took me a long time to make the decision. I talked to them. I was talking to them when I was in Nashville there with you, and they didn't have a presence out here on the West Coast yet. And so, from my perspective, kind of our mission has always been to change the way people feel about residential construction companies. And I wanted to, when I say that, I don't mean like one or two clients at a time. I mean, like, how do we really change the way people feel about the industry and us as builders? Because we, as we all know, have kind of earned it as an industry, a bad reputation sometimes. There's been a lot of builders that don't operate properly, take deposits, they disappear, they can't hit a schedule, they can't hit a budget, it takes twice as long, costs twice as much, all the things that you hear, and everybody's got a friend who's got a horror story about construction companies and people. What I noticed, my dad, when I was little, he was a pretty small operator, really small operator, and so his office was like our dining room table. And when I was little, mom would get the house ready and get ready for clients to come over and meet dad and go through their plans and all of that. And people would sit down, and my dad is literally the most honest human on the planet and fair. Sometimes, too much, he'll get taken advantage of if he's not careful. And even with that, me knowing my dad was that way, people would sit down, and I just noticed that their initial it's can be a little bit combative or like he's trying to get over on them, right? And so kind of attributed that to just like, okay, there must be a problem with the industry because it's definitely not my dad, right? And so how do we fix that to where it's like when people go in to buy toilet paper at Costco, right? It's like you don't they don't look at the price. They know they're getting value because it's Costco. Throw it on, it's 36 rolls and 360 sheets per roll, and they just throw it and they buy it, and they go home, and they know it's fair. They probably could get it cheaper at Walmart. They could probably find a special or a deal somewhere, but there's value because it's Costco, and it's a trusted thing. And so the way I kind of decided early on that needed to be changed is with some consistency in process. Every house we build is a prototype, right? Every one is different. That we don't do the same one twice ever. So you can't do necessarily consistency in the product because you're kind of a lot of times figuring it out as you go. It's the first time it's ever been built. But how do we like create some sort of confidence in the market with some consistency in the process? At least, like, hey, you go buy a Mercedes and it's the same at every Mercedes dealership, right? And it's really kind of every car dealership. You go in, you talk to them, you drive it, you go sit down in finance. You don't like you do a little like, hey, is there any room on this? You go back and forth. All that's fine, but then at the end of the day, you don't get to redline the contract and send it back to the bank and tell them how you want to do it. And it's a trusted process, right? And so when I was doing that as Eckman Construction, I was, starting work at 3 o'clock in the morning and ending at 8, 9 o'clock at night, because there's a lot that goes into that to create that trust and build those processes that are consistent and predictable. And so when Alair came to me and were talking to me about
So
potentially
let me
joining.
let me stop you there for a second because I think that's interesting. So they sought you out,
Oh yeah, yeah, they did.
and because
Yeah.
they knew Washington was a market they wanted to go into, because they're based out of Canada, is that right?
Yeah, right across the border from me,
Oh,
very
okay,
close in
okay,
in Nanaimo.
yeah,
But they're U.S. presence has been more on the Southeast. I mean, big Florida, the Carolinas. They got a couple in Arizona, but nothing here in California or Washington. And so
Gotcha.
they knew that Washington was a big market, but we now work really hard to that kind of that first office, that pilot office in the region. We want it to be a good office and have a good presence because there's not a regional partner here to help guide that transition. So they've got to be pretty aligned in the way they have built their business to be the first one in the region. And so, yeah, they reached out to me, and I talked to Shane there for, I mean, every other week for, I mean, no exaggeration, 2.5 years. We just kept talking. And I was a no, no, no. Okay, well, let's think about it. No way. Like my ego was in the way. It was this big thing. Like, it's my name on the side of the building. Why do we want that as builders? I don't know, but everybody does it. And, so it was a hard decision. But then once I was on the other side of it, I just wish I would have done it sooner.
What was it that finally got you to flip the switch? Like, what was it that sold you on doing it?
It was mindset. I, like most people would do in the moment, is like, hey, what's Alair going to do for me? Like, what am I going to get out of this? And I just couldn't equate it dollars and cents wise as to why this would make sense. I'm already doing this. I already have different divisions of the company. If I just keep doing it the way I'm doing it and growing the way I'm growing, someday it'll run itself and be a sellable entity and all the things I thought it would do. But what changed my mindset was what changed me was when my mindset changed from, what is Alair going to do for me, to like, what can I do inside of Alair? What can I do with this? And that led to me realizing that, hey, I can really help shape the way people feel about residential construction companies on a big scale, because there's 108 offices and we're all doing it the same way. And so it's not just 12 clients at a year that I was doing at the time. It's 100 offices doing 12 a year. So it's 1,200 people a year, really 2,400, because it's usually a partnership, right?
So really that mindset shift. Well, how old were you as a kid when you noticed that concept? I mean, it's pretty advanced for your age to even any age really, to look at your dad and realize, wait a minute, if this is how people look at my dad, who obviously you knew your dad, like this is an industry, that's a pretty profound revelation. How old of a kid were you?
I mean, it started when I was little, but it wasn't like a profound revelation. It was just like, that's weird. I don't look at dad that way,
Right.
But then in middle school, 7th, 8th grade, when I was old enough to kind of think like, what do I want to do with my life? And I thought I wanted to be a carpenter. And my dad was like, well, I'm going to cut both your hands off if you want to do that, because it's a terrible career. And I was like, wait a minute, why is that? And so it just kind of, the pieces all started coming together, that dad felt like people treated him bad. I saw people, their first feeling I get from people, and still to this day, sometimes they sit down and they're scared. They don't know who to hire, why would I hire you? Everybody's telling them what they want to hear, And so that, in probably 7th, 8th grade is when I started to realize that the system has, and I always said like, oh, the system's broken. But a really good architect friend of mine, who I go around and talk about this, he said, Stacy, the system's not broken. It's just never been any way but this, right? So he said, I think you should be careful using the word broken. I'm trying not to use that. The system just needs some development,
Mm-hmm. I mean, I think, I think our industry, because building and construction has been around since, Adam and Eve left the Garden of Eden, right? So that, been building it from a very long time, but like everyone does it a little bit differently. And so because we don't have a universally adopted system, even with like the building codes, which you think would bring some order, and maybe building wise but even geographically, we know, like obviously you and I are in much colder climates. I've always kind of considered Seattle kind of a sister city to, Minneapolis here where I am, but like, but operationally, business wise, you and I have bonded a lot on that, and we'll continue to do so. I mean, the whole point we even have the Curious Collectives is because, most people got into building or designing or architects because that was their passion or they're good at it. But who teaches you how to run a business? Which is what I'm hearing right now, is that that is really where systems really come to play. I'm not saying you don't need systems to build, you certainly do. And like you look at, but a lot of everyone's developing their own. Look at trimmers. I mean, I used to have a trimmer, Todd, is amazing. He would walk into a room, he would sit up like one of those camp chairs with a cup of coffee and a notepad. He'd sit down in like a great room, like, look, and this was before we had, architects. And even if you did have architects that design all the coffered ceilings and all the details and all the measurements, he would sit down for a day, no lie. He would just look at the room and he was building it in his mind, like, how do I do this? And that was his process. And I'm like, well, I didn't know any other trimmer, so I thought every trimmer did it that way. Todd is a very rare individual in how he pre-thinks. I've never seen anyone else do that but Todd. Anyway, I use that story just as an example of like, everyone's system is slightly different, and you can actually get to the end with far different systems. But man, how much better would our industry be if we all had a similar ethos and a similar system? So I assume that's kind of what drew you into that Alair system.
Yeah, I mean, if you look at it and like, again, we don't build the same house 3 times, but if you built 3 of the exact same houses and hired 3 separate contractors, it'd be totally different. It's a different contract. It's a different what's in overhead and profit. What do you produce a schedule? Program do you use to produce a schedule? How do I see the information? Are you transparent? Are you really transparent? Are you billing monthly? Are you billing on milestones? It would be 3 different ways. And then if you really like break it down, even if you hired the same builder 3 times, but had 3 different project managers, it's a totally different system. Because you hire a project manager who knows how to build a house, and most guys are like, okay, you know how to build a house, go build it, and so they're bringing their systems from the other guy in, right? And so there's no consistency, right? And so if we had that, which was really what drew me to Alair, because I don't have a business degree, didn't really know how to run a business. When I started my business, I didn't know what Microsoft Excel was. I had a past of, I played baseball and that's all I did. And then I did drugs and that's all I did. And so I didn't learn how to use a computer. I didn't know how to do estimates. I didn't know any of that stuff. I was trying to get my life back together, and okay, well, next, I guess I'm going to start a business. And so that's what I did. And so everything I was doing I was just making it up as I went. And so I surely wasn't doing it the right way, and I wasn't doing it the way the other guy across the street was doing it. And so so I got to a size of a company. We were a pretty substantial company that I was looking at things. It was my 10-year party, like the actual like decision. I was having my 10 years since I actually changed from a sole prop to actual corporation and like a real business. I was having a party here at my office. It was August, so it was hot. I was standing out on the asphalt giving a speech. I was sweating. I hate to talk in public. And we were going through this list of things like where I'd come from, where all the different subcontractors we'd hired this many subs, this many employees, yada, yada, yada. And I was reading it off and I was like so overwhelmed. Like, how am I going to do this again? Like, I got I got another 10 years in me or 20 years in me. How am I going to do it again? And so then I put the microphone down and I said to a gal that was working with me at the time, I said, book me a flight. I'm going to see Steve Kendrick in South Carolina, who had a beautiful office. He had an awesome company before he signed up. And so I was like, why did he do this? And I went and saw him for a day. Then I flew to Naples and talked to Shane in person and threatened his life. Like, if this doesn't work, then my life is on the line here. And then, within a week or two, I made the decision to join.
This episode is brought to you by Pella Windows and Doors. I've used Pella for 21 years as the exclusive window company on every one of my builds. When people ask me who I trust for windows and doors, it's Pella, every time. Their craftsmanship, their innovation, the top-tier service make them a no-brainer for any custom home builder or designer who demand the best. Whether you're designing something bold or building something with timeless elegance, Pella has you covered. They're also the only window company that has a lifetime warranty on all of their windows. I've gotten to know all their people at Pella Corporate, as well as locally here at Pella Northland. I'm proud to call them our partners and our friends. Visit Pella.com to learn more and connect with your local reps today. For more information, you can also listen to episode 1, where I interview the Pella Northland founders, as well as episode 109, where we talk all about their latest innovation with the Steady Set window. Those first, looking back now, were there any kind of like really key things, mindset, operational things, or how would you look at your business through the lens today of where you were and what did you change?
You mean from when I was Ekman
Yeah.
before?
I mean, because you were a good operator,
Hmm.
obviously. I mean, that's why they're attracted to you. But what have you, looking back now, I assume how would you equate your skill level, entrepreneur level, systems level on a scale from 1 to 10 now to what it was 5 years ago?
Well, my systems now are a 10 as far as construction goes. It's really dialed in, and Alair provides that, right? Before, I think I was good. I was 7, 8.
Mhm.
I was really good as far as construction companies, that just start up on their own go. The problem with it is that even if I wasn't doing it, I had a general manager, I had accounting, I had all the departments they're supposed to have, and they operated effectively. But at the end of the day, like, I was the one confirming that that stuff got done. I was the one telling them, "Hey, we need to improve this or improve that." And now I've got a layer with it, which is the systems and processes behind it, that the software pops up those red flags that, hey, project managers aren't turning in their receipts properly, or this isn't coded right, or whatever it may be. That then I don't have, it's a peace of mind thing, so that I'm able to buy back my time here with what we're talking about. I'm
Yeah.
able to do what my highest and best value is, which is talking about a layer, motivating other layer offices, selling to the big clients. I still meet with those people, but it just gives me an ability to elevate and delegate and trust that it's getting done. And if it's not getting done, somebody's going to flag that for me.
I like that, elevate and delegate. That's a good one. Or maybe you delegate so you can elevate. I guess that
Yeah.
works. That works both ways. I like that. It's like your
Yeah.
attitude affects your altitude. I mean, that's what are. I mean, so for instance, a lot of businesses around here, EOS is a very popular operating system. Is it like, give me some parallels to the business owners out there? Is it kind of like a business system that you operate in, or how would you describe the Alair sort of infrastructure? Because I'm sure a lot of builders right now are like, Mark, ask this question. I'm trying to, like, what question would they want me to ask? I'm thinking, like, what systems are they bringing? Like, how are they doing this? Like, this is very intriguing.
Well, first and foremost, we operate and live by and require everybody's using EOS. We all use EOS as a company, Alair wide. So all of our meetings are that way with our other offices, things like that. So that's just kind of how we communicate and run our business. But what Alair has created, developed a software that, is like Builder Trend, but we were Builder Trend. I was Builder Trend at Ekman. The difference I see isn't necessarily that it's definitely not better than Builder Trend, but what it does is that we cannot operate outside of the software. So what I found with Builder Trend is that it's amazing, works so good, but the owner of the company still has the ability to use it 80% of the stuff or 90% of the stuff. And so maybe accounting isn't done through there. Maybe you aren't doing your finish selections through there. Maybe the budget doesn't match the billing, right? And so if it's not used 100%, then 90% that you are using it not accurate, right? And so, and for a client's perspective, from a client's perspective, what you're not putting in there is really the problem, right? It's like, because that's their access to the project. So the software that we have developed, it was a big build, a very complex software, robust software. Everything is housed in there, and we can't do a single thing outside of that. So that gives me controls over the team. It gives clients comfort in the process, and trusting that nothing's happening outside of there. We can't send them a bill unless there's a bill to back it up. We can't pay a subcontractor unless it's in that software. Nothing can happen outside of that software. And so that is kind of the, I don't know, the anchor that holds us all together. Now, I wouldn't suggest somebody, hey, sign up because we have a software. That's ridiculous, right? But it is what, once you're here, you really learn to love that software, because it gives me the ability to do what I do. Now, the other beautiful thing about Alair is it's just a brain trust of, there's 108 offices. I think it's 160 individual owners of these offices, and that we meet every Wednesday on a Teams call. We have, coaching sessions, all these things. I just got off the all company call, and any question you might have, there's literally nothing we haven't done as a group. And we're all moving in the same direction. We've all been a part of Builder 20 groups or even Contractor Coalition. Awesome, beautiful things. But there's still a little bit of ego attached when we go to those things, and everybody's doing a little better than, or everybody's doing a little better than they actually are, right? And like things, things are good, da, da, da. Well, within Alair, like we're all moving in the same direction. We all know kind of what everybody else is doing, and so when somebody's struggling, we can pick them up. When somebody's doing really good, we can look to them and say, okay, what are they doing? And it's just open information.
Do they sort of break it down into like regions, or like you have like you have your own mini sessions, like, hey, these 10 builders or 20 builders sort of meet quarterly just to keep it like that smaller meeting versus all company?
Yep, we call it A teams, which Darren and I, my business partner in the regional partnership side of things, Darren and I lead our A teams, and we have 8 different companies, different Alair offices that meet and join, and it's structured very similarly to a Builder 20 group.
And I assume so that therefore they'd be in non-competing markets most likely.
Yes.
Yep.
And we don't believe that there's any competition within Alair. I'm happy to have another Alair office next door to me here in Kirkland. There's plenty of work for everybody. More trucks we can have on the road, the better. Like
Right.
there's no, we don't, I'm not worried about, and actually, to be honest with you, Jed just joined over in Seattle. He's Alair Seattle, and he's in our A team. So he would be considered competition. It's 12 miles away. He's right there. So he would be considered competition, but we just don't look at it. We are one big company. We're the biggest construction company in the world, and moving as such.
And when you say biggest in the world, I assume that's residential.
Residential,
Yeah.
custom home, and large scale remodel.
Yeah, that's amazing. How in from a modeling standpoint, is that like a franchise model? Is that like how does that
Exactly.
that work? Yeah. Okay.
Exactly. It's a franchise model, and really, it operates like a franchise, except really the founder of Alair, he wanted to kind of build this thing and didn't know another model to use other than franchise. The controls and things, we do believe that there's freedom in structure that they provide, but it's not like we're not required. It's not like McDonald's where you got to buy the fries from the McDonald's fry guy. We buy our nails wherever we want, right? It's not that way. There's not those tight of controls. It's more on the finance side of things, making sure that everybody's doing the right thing and clients are taken care of the way they need to. Obviously, on quality control and things like that, that's put on us as a regional partner to deal with in our region. So yes, it is a franchise. You buy a franchise license to be a part of it. Yes.
I mean, one of my favorite quotes the last 2 years. I haven't come up, audience who's heard this quote 10,000 times. I need to come up with a new quote for 2026 because this quote, I mean, until another one replaces it, I can't unhear this one, but it's boundaries create freedom. And essentially what EOS and what, Alair's system is doing is you have freedom because you have boundaries. I like what you said, like the system doesn't allow you to do X, Y, and Z. I'm sure there are protocols, their communication to the client. And you're right. I mean, we use Builder Trend. We also use Adaptive, which I love. And, but you're right. We're sort of building it, and we build amazing homes. We have a great process, but the process is like, honestly, I suspect I'm like a lot of builders, like how much of it lives in my head versus how much is written down. And it's too much. And now I have the best team I've ever had in my career. And I haven't felt this free and this excited to sort of do what I'm really good at, which is be free. But, life happens to all of us. If someone leaves, if someone gets sick, or if my team grows, like every builder has to consider this, and most of us just aren't willing to do it or face it. It's a little bit like, honestly, I didn't mean for this to go there, but like I'm 45 and I have a group of friends. We meet every other month to talk about financial stuff. So like financial friends, like we get deep, like anything about our life is fair game for these two people that we talk about. We talk about doing deals together. We talk about life and death and finances. But anyway, my buddy is like, have you taken care of your funeral arrangements? I'm like, what? He's like, yeah, last week my wife and I just decided we didn't want that to be a burden for for our kids. So we went and paid for a casket, a funeral plot, and paid it out. I'm like, wow. And so now it's become like a race of like, how many things can you iron out and be done with so you never have to deal with them again? So like I did last week, I call it the death binder. I'm going to do an episode on it where basically like my wife is a physician. She has no interest in business or any of these things. And like, so like, I'm thinking, well, like if I die in Costa Rica this weekend, or if like I get hit by a semi, like is she even gonna know who our lawyer is or like our bank accounts or any of that stuff? And I only bring this up by saying like we have to write stuff down, and we always think we're gonna do it. I mean, I'm just speaking for myself, but I suspect a lot of people think like this. We're gonna do it someday, but like ultimately you got to do it today. Like you can't keep putting this stuff off. You got to start handling it. And so anyway, what I love, what I'm hearing is just this system allows, I bet, a lot of peace of mind and a lot of clarity.
Yep, it does, and it really is peace of mind. Without going too deep into personal stuff, I went through a thing over the last few years, and it kind of all kicked off right after I signed up for Alair, and I had to spend a lot of time away from work, and I was able to do that, and came back. Of course, there were some challenges. It was during transition and all of that, but I just wasn't able to be here. And that first year that I was within Alair, and I do not recommend anybody do this. And I'm lucky that Alair didn't freak out on me. I had a really good team again, but I spent like 6 or 8 weeks in Mexico and like phone off, trying to put my life back together. Ultimately, that didn't work, but I came back and the business was still here, and everything was fine. And that I attribute to the fact that Darren, who's my VP of operations and business partner in the regional partnership piece, he had Alair to lean on and say like, okay, what are we supposed to do next in this transition? What do we do when Stacy's not selling? What should I be doing? And they're like, well, maybe we should find somebody to come and help you sell. Like what are we going to do here? And so it really creates a business. It turns it from a job to a business, which also the other big thing is it makes it a sellable entity within and again, I'm not looking to exit anytime soon, but when I'm ready, I can, because I don't know if you've ever sold a company, but when you do, typically there's a broker involved and they're getting a big cut. There's due diligence that's insane. Everything's got to be cleaned up just perfectly to present. And then as a custom home company, you're lucky if you get like 2 times earnings, and you got to stay on for 3 years because make sure to get paid out, and hope and pray that the economy doesn't fall apart so you get your money and all of that. Within Alair, it's not that way. Like I can raise my hand on a Wednesday call and say, Kirkland's up for sale. And then you're going to start getting some offers because the accounting's all at home office. We all trust the accounting. We know what it is. Deliver the documents. It's all there. You don't have to hire a broker, so they don't get a chunk. And your multiplier is significantly better, because in theory, they could come and sit down in front of this computer that I'm sitting at, and the leads are coming in based on our marketing, based on the thing. Leads are coming in. The sales process is the same. The estimating process is the same. All the project managers have been trained by Alair the same. The software is the same. It's the same.
I mean,
right?
that part, I mean, there's a ton of value in that. Do you have to be in market, or do they do like, could I be one if I wanted to be in Minneapolis, or do they geographically lock them?
You absolutely could be. You would reach out to me and we would talk it through. We don't have one in Minneapolis yet, but we are
hot take, people. This is Stacy's pitch.
But we are. We're actively looking to grow, especially the new software has been online now for a year and a half. It's really ironed out. And so we have a big initiative to start talking to builders again. And that's one of my jobs as regional partner, is to grow my regions, and the new regions that need to talk to somebody, that I'm happy to talk to them and talk about it. The one thing you have to do, you could, as long as you qualify and all of that, but which I'm sure you would, you have to be a builder. It's transition only model, or conversion only model. You can't buy a franchise license if you're an architect and just start building. You have to have an assistant, because once you're wearing the same shirt as me, you better not screw it up, because you screw it up, you screw it up for everybody, right?
No,
So
I get it. It's
the
like
vetting process is
it's
pretty heavy.
it's like the All Blacks for the New Zealand rugby team, right? It's like you're wearing the jersey, you're USA, right? It's Herb Brooks, Minnesota folklore, right? Like it's not the name on the back that matters; it's the one on the front.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Yeah.
Well, so walk me through your exploring LA market. So that's really unique. Very few builders that I know are able to transition out of a single market. And I've even with like the Curious Builder enterprise and like, like my Misa House project, which is a spec home I'm building here in Minnesota, really excited about it. We'll save that for another episode. But like, I want to, we're going to develop like licensing for the philosophy that I'm kind of creating with this wellness house. But like, if it's in Minnesota, like I want to build it because I'm here. But like, if I have a great client who wants to build a home in Bozeman, Montana, or Colorado, or just I'm picking mountains because I love skiing and I love the mountains. So like, I'm sorry, I'm only as good as my people. That's always been kind of the common answer for most builders because we always say that, hey, we're only as good as our people around us, which is true. We're like, I feel like interior designers and architects, man, they've been having their day the last decade. They can go all over the country, all over the world, and still do their job at a very high level. I think some builders are able to navigate that a little bit because they can go set up teams and freelance it out, but it's not quite the same. That's my prejudice. Tell me if I'm wrong, and then walk me through like how does LA fit into your what you're doing and why LA? Why not a different city?
Well, first, the way we do that is we bring established builders in to Alair. So it is one of the benefits for like architects and designers who are designing and stuff all over the country or all over North America. We probably have an Alair office somewhere close to to the market that their client here is wanting to design a house in Florida, a second home. Well, that architect doesn't have a builder to recommend. Well, they do now. They can recommend Alair and they know that process and they know what it is because it's the same, right? So it is really, architects and designers love it because they've got us everywhere.
That's pretty cool.
And so, but LA and well, Southern California in general, it's on the West Coast. It's easy for me to get there, so that's nice. It's sunny most of the time. That was attractive, but there was 2 offices down there before I signed up, and they didn't have a regional partner. And regional partners are really important just because it's boots on the ground. It's somebody they can call. We help them grow. We deal with architect meetings and things like that. We help with marketing events. Operationally, Darren goes there and helps them operationally be profitable and hit their schedules and all of that stuff. So for me, it was a pretty easy decision. And then the fires happened this last year, Palisade fires. And I saw that, was talking to those builders down there and they were telling me how people just, they didn't know what to do because they're not getting enough money from their insurance companies. They're afraid to be the first one to build because they're going to be surrounded by construction for the next 15 years. They don't want to be the last one to build because it's going to be 3 times as much because everything's going to be. And so I wanted to figure out a way that I could make a difference. And so I said, okay. And that's when I started talking to Alair and saying, hey, these 2 offices can use some support. I believe that I can go down there and it's an opportunity to plant a flag for Alair that, hey, we're here and we're going to do a good job and potentially bring a couple more builders in. It's just a huge market. And so that was kind of why we ended up doing it. And I'm able to do that because, my team here does everything day to day. Darren is the best thing that ever happened to me was hiring Darren. He's really highly qualified and holds everything together. And so I'm able to do those type of things. So I spend 1 week a month at a minimum down there in Southern California.
Yeah, I mean, that makes a total sense, especially when whether you're building teams or kind of that regional manager, it's a little bit different role. I mean, I'm really intrigued. I mean, obviously now I'm going to have to go offline. Now I'm really curious. It's like, I want to see the demo because of course my curiosity is like, what does the secret system look like? Is this like, I'm kind of very curious about how that'll work. Let's shift it a little bit, to the narrative, some more, just personal stuff. You had said once, I was just doing a little research and it was just kind of interesting because I agree with you. You said that you believe that sales is the single most important KPI for builders. Why is that?
Because if you want to build a company, you need cash flow. Like you need money, right? Like you've got to have work, you've got to have stuff. If you run out of that, then you lose your good people, you lose your presence. You don't have trucks on the road, you don't have signs in the ground, and so it's a snowball going the wrong direction, right? Where you're
Wait, the
in a
snowball
pickle.
can go uphill?
You don't want it to. I'll tell you that. So I mean, I just believe that, and I also believe that. Uh, Sales, it fixes a lot of problems. And for me, I don't know when I said that, but for a long time in my business, I wasn't profitable. When I was sitting with you, I was just barely figuring out how to be profitable. And it was imperative that I continue to sell so that I just gave me time to figure it out. I needed to buy time to figure out how I can do this in a profitable way. Who should I be hiring to do this thing that I'm terrible at, which is being profitable on the jobs. I'm really good at getting the jobs. I'm really good at making people excited about working with us. And then I turned around and I was like, man, there's no money left over. What happened? Well, you weren't paying attention to that. You were paying attention to the next one, right? So I needed to find somebody to pay attention to what was happening on the day to day.
We're excited to announce that we're bringing back Sauna Camp 2.0 on March 20th from 2 to 8 p.m. We had this last year. We had 42 owners. This year, we're maxing out the capacity of the camp, which is going to be 60 people. We're going to have a wellness panel with some Everest summiters, as well as some Iron men and women to compete, and all about wellness and how they prioritize their health and wellness, not only in training, but in their lifestyles and in their business. And then we're going to have a 2-hour window of sauna and cold plunging in the lake, and then an amazing wood-fired grill, Mediterranean-style food at the end of that. So if you're interested, please head to curiousbuilder.com. Under retreats, you'll find everything there is about Sauna Camp on March 20th in Minnesota. It's funny. I mean, I do think experience matters way more than I used to. When you were younger, I used to, regardless of where I was in life, sales was always something I was good at, or I thought I was good at, or I liked to do. So maybe it's all of them. But I was telling someone today, like, as I've gotten older, like, there's no question that the builder I am today, like, I could mop the floor of the builder I was 5-10 years ago. I mean, I just know more. I'm just a much better operator. I'm much more profitable. I understand way more about running a business than I did before. And some of it is just trial by error. And I was speaking with a good mentor friend of mine today. We had lunch, and I just asked him. I said, give me some pearls, and he gave me a great one. He said, try to learn from the mistakes of others so you don't have to. And I'm sure it's been said many
That's
different ways, but it's like, well,
Yeah.
wow, that would have been really helpful. And like, some of them you have to do, right? There's no question, right? I mean, some of them you just have to learn yourself. There's no substitution for hands-on experience. But that being said, like, you don't have to go through every single thing to understand every single thing. And I think that's why I think podcasts have done so well, because people were able to share stories. I mean, that's honestly one of the biggest reasons why I enjoy doing it. Because I love hearing people's stories. Is my goal has always been to that a listener, and myself included, could get 2 to 3 business ideas out of what you're saying and apply to my life. And one of our series right now is Losers Are Winners. On Thursdays, I have people come in and just share like the worst thing that's ever happened to them. But the whole intention is that, like, by them sharing that story, could it be something we either A, relate to, or B, could we avoid, and why not? Like, why? And I don't know, there's something about human nature. We continue to make the same mistakes, including ourselves. Like, I like say with some humility is like, I've learned that mistake. That being said, I likely will make it again. Hopefully not as bad, but it's probably going to happen. I'm an idiot.
Right.
And like, I have a short-term memory. And so anyway, with that being said, if you could go, and this was actually a question, and you get a chance later at the end of the episode to ask this, but David Wershay from Wershay Homes up in St. Cloud, Minnesota was here last week, and we're letting each guest ask a question for the next guest. So his question, which is in the spirit of this line of thinking, his question to you today is, what was the biggest mistake financially you've made on a job, and what did you learn on it?
Ooh. Biggest financial mistake. I mean, I've had a few pretty significant ones where we've rebuilt stairs 7 times, and but one time we had to like do it after the house was done, and we tried to like
Was it just
It's
because
a
it
long story.
failed code, or like why'd you have to
Yeah,
rebuild it?
yeah, code and the floor. We didn't actually have the flooring picked out before we did them, so the
The
heights
heights.
changed, and of course I didn't ask for a change order. I was like, oh, I should have known that. We just kept redoing it. But anyways, and code got us on another one, but that's probably not the biggest. The biggest business mistake I will say I made is I thought that I remember I don't, it must have been 10 years ago. I was looking at quotes coming in for a project and excavation quotes. It seemed to me like, why are these guys charging so much money to dig out dirt? Right?
Right.
Like
Yes.
they must be killing it. So I decided, knowing nothing
Oh
about
no.
excavation, I started an excavation company.
Oh no.
And it would have been fine if I was just digging foundations for my projects and things like that. But I had these two guys, they were brothers, and they knew excavation. They came from excavation world, right? So okay, great. I put these guys in charge of it. My first project, somehow somebody told somebody that I was starting a company. My first project was this, I don't know, like 6 house development out in Redmond, who's got the hardest codes in the world. And we needed to put this big, huge vault in, water retention vault.
Oh man.
Long story, we did everything wrong. We hit power lines, shut the power down. We were in the process of about to be sued. Like it was a nightmare. We ended up getting fired on that job, unfortunately.
Shocking.
And I
Shocking.
closed the excavation company immediately. And
This is the best story
I
ever.
paid out, 6 figures to make it go away, and it went away.
This is
And I wasn't insured properly. I was like running the insurance through the construction company.
oh
It was a long time
my
ago. Yeah,
cheeks hurt. I'm laughing so hard.
yeah, it was a
Oh,
long time ago. Yeah.
that's a whopper right there.
So my biggest mistake is thinking I know something I don't and just going for it, and thinking. I mean, I remember when it was like I don't know, like a $500,000 excavation contract I signed, the first one. And I thought, I made it. Like this is it.
You're like, you're right. Like this is 80% margin. Like, I mean,
This
oh
is it.
man.
Yeah,
I'm gonna,
yeah.
oh
I'm
dude.
closing the house building company. We're digging holes. Yeah, it's crazy.
Oh
Crazy.
man, that's a good one. Kind of going in line as we kind of wind down here for the last 15 minutes of kind of going around the buy back your time is just some of the questions. I'm only honestly about 30 pages into the book, so I'm gonna to keep it fresh for the audience. Kind of will basically the framing of questions will either be written in by the audience or as I kind of go through the book. But one of them was really early in the intro was, do you have an example of during your career where you made a mistake and somebody gave you a second chance?
Yep. Yep. I built a house for a guy. It was one of the first ground ups that I built, and I really messed up underneath I really messed up in another excavation debacle, but I wasn't managing the excavator properly. I didn't know what I was doing, and I didn't read the civil plans right, and we got way further along before we could fix it. And obviously the guy was really upset with me, but we just sat down and had a conversation, and I said, hey, his name was Abe. I said, hey Abe, I am really sorry. I screwed this up. I took full accountability from Jump Street. The schedule's going to be hurt a little bit, but to do this the right way, we got to go back, and I got to go in reverse a little bit. And, am I, do you trust that, my intentions are right? And of course, because of the relationship and because he trusted me, he did give me a second chance. And I mean, there's been a lot of things along the way that people, I believe if you're just honest, you deliver bad news before or faster than good news. They don't catch the mistake before you tell them there was a mistake. You'll get a second chance to fix it. I also had a project that remodel that didn't go very well. I mean, this was really, really early in my career. And then a couple of years later, they called me up and said, hey, I see you're still doing good. We need another project. You made it right the last time. So, you want to come try again. And we knocked the next one out of the park. So
I know those are great. I love
yeah.
that. Thinking from a leadership standpoint, well, first of all, let me ask you a two-part question. One is, what is the difference between a cheerleader and a coach? And which one are you better at? Are you better at coaching your people, or are you better at being a cheerleader?
I believe that a good coach has some cheerleader in them. I think that it's important to remind people when they're doing a good job, but the coach doesn't avoid when things are not going well, right? And so I do believe I'm a good coach, and I think of a coach as more like a leader than somebody standing beside him saying, "Hey, come on, we can do this. Let's, you're doing great." And so I really try to lead, well, by example, and you know none of us like hard conversations, but I make those a priority, and I say, "Hey, we're this isn't going well. Here's how I see you getting out of it, and hey, by the way, I'm going to be your biggest cheerleader along the way, and we're going to get there."
I like that. We'd probably have time to dive into it now, though I do want to hear more about it sometime for sure in person, because I know Morgan has spoken highly about it as well. But who believed in you before you believed in yourself? And the frame of this question is like, there's that saying out there in business, which I think is partially true, fake it till you make it. But, sometimes you look back and you're like, where does confidence come from? Sometimes we have self-confidence. Sometimes people give us confidence. Sometimes we learn confidence. But if you were to look back on your career or your life, however you want to interpret this question, who do you think was believing in you and who you could be as an entrepreneur before you realized you believed in you?
I mean, a few people, but I think, my mom and my sister, they always just like saw something in me. And then even today, I look at my team. I think we probably all, some of the time I look at myself and I think like, man, I hope people don't figure out that I don't know what I'm doing. Right. It's like one of these days, everybody's going to realize that I'm just making it up as I go. But my team, there's one, well, they're all of them, but Eric specifically, he's one of our project managers. I mean, he reminds me all the time, like, "Hey, man, we're behind you, and this guy, you're gonna." And I hear him back there telling the team anytime anything happens, or we have a little slowdown, or he's worried, wherever he's worried about something, he's telling them like, "Hey, I've worked for a lot of guys, and the guys I've worked for that are like Stacy, they're super successful. So we're gonna do it the way Stacy wants to do it. We're gonna follow him. We've got his back." And so I think that like the first one was probably my mom. My dad in baseball, he believed in me probably too much, like like he shouldn't have, but he believed in it, and so that gave me a lot of confidence growing up. And then I also think that we touched a little bit. I had the time in my life where I wasn't such a good human, where I was doing drugs and ended up going to treatment and getting through that and all of that. But like coming out of that, although people believed in me, what really mattered in that moment is I believed in myself. I said, I'm going to put this back together and I'm just going to go do it. So I think a lot of times you need people to believe in you when you're having a hard time. But at some point you're the one really who drives your own confidence.
I am 100% agree with you. It's funny because from a parent standpoint, I'm a lot more confident, maybe false confident than my wife is. And we have 3 kids, 9, 7, and 6. And we've just talked about, every parent kind of thinks about like, hey, how do we want to raise our kids like at the end of all this? Because no, it's not like I always joke, there's no handbook came out of the uterus when May was born. Like everyone's kind of figuring this out on the fly. We're all parental frauds, and like we're asking everyone like what to do. And anyway, my point is we kind of decided that at the end of the day, if we could teach our kids to be confident and to feel loved, like if we taught them nothing else but those 2 things, they would go into the world feeling loved and feeling confident. Like I feel like I would be a good parent. And the reason I'm bringing that up is like I feel like failure, my next question for you is, what has failure taught you? And maybe just for myself, because I'm on this line here, is like I think failure is so important to our confidence. And I think failure is so important to our self-love and to like our belief in ourselves, because if you never fail, like you don't, and honestly, failure is such a huge metric. I mean, it's not my podcast, it's yours, but like, I remember what I thought was going to be failure. And at the time it was my dad. And he explained like that's not failure. Worst case, I was worried about going bankrupt. He goes, worst case scenario, this is like, I was like 27 at the time. He's like, I was single. He's like, worst case scenario, you move home, you live in the basement, your mom makes you Swedish pancakes and eat huckleberry pancakes all day. I'm like, dang, that failure sounds pretty nice. So like my point in bringing it up is like, failure is not really failure. It's just, we put so much pressure on ourselves as entrepreneurs and as humans where we think we define what failure is, but it's kind of this construct that doesn't exist. That's my opinion of it. With that terrible question, what would be your response to kind of what I said and how you view it for your life?
Well, I want to touch quick on what you said about being a parent. And I think that one of the things was to teach them how to feel loved.
Mm-hmm.
And like that, I believe, goes back to cheerleader or coach, and like actually learning to feel when somebody loves you is actually like a skill at first, right? It's not just like, oh, I love you a lot, and they automatically feel it, right? So it's not just cheerleading. I'm saying like, man, I love you, I love you, I love you. It's like actually, how do they receive it and hear it and feel it? So I think that's really, that was a long way of complimenting that like goal you guys have as parents. I think it's so important, because if you don't know how to feel it, then you certainly can't give it, right? And so it's a hard thing to learn, and so that's really cool that you're doing that. As far as failure and what failure has taught me, what it's taught me is that everything's going to be okay, right? I've had some things that felt like the end of when the excavation debacle happened. I mean, I thought it was over, right? My identity, my business, my everything, failure in when, and I learned that when baseball, I really believed I was going to be, a Major League Baseball player and take care of everybody and and when that didn't work out, that was a huge failure. And I literally thought life was over. I've had girlfriends that you break up with and you think, that's a huge failure. That was the one. And then you look back and you're like, whew, good thing that didn't work out,
Right.
And so I believe that failure for me just teaches me, one of my mottos, you may have heard it or seen it on social media or whatever, I say it all the time, is like, just do the next thing. And I learned that in trying to get sober and get off of drugs, was like, it got really granular. Like, okay, the next thing I gotta brush my teeth. The next thing I just need to walk out to my truck, and then I need to go to the store and get that energy drink because I feel like garbage. So I need to get some energy. And like, it was like really granular. And when things get really hard, or I have a failure, or things fall apart, I go back to that. And pretty quick, a week goes by, a month goes by, 10 years goes by, and you look back and you're like, whoa, look at what those little tiny steps did.
You're so right. That perspective is so needed, and it's it's kind of like you can endure a lot, not forever, but obviously for a short period of time. I mean, obviously short is somewhat. I mean, people do years, might be short in the grand scheme of life, but like those one moments, I I think about, just because I've gotten into ultra running the last couple of years, and like there are points of mile 40, mile 50, mile 60, like you're not feeling so great,
Yeah.
but like there are times where you feel really good. You get like these second wins that you can't really explain, but like ultimately it gets really, everyone I've ever talked to, it's a mindset thing, and it sounds like a crazy mileage, and maybe it is, but like you normalize it. You think, okay, it's 4 miles to the next aid station, and you're like, and you could break it down to like, you know what, I just need to make it 4 miles. And so in your mind, you think back, you're like, okay, what's a 4-mile loop that I run every day? Once around Lake Harriet. Great. I can do that. No problem. I do. And so you reduce to the ridiculous, or you know what, I'm only going to run to the next tree. That's fine. It doesn't matter. And I think that's true of business too. Like sometimes, especially when there's like debt, or there's sales, or super pressure, all that stuff, it's like, what am I going to do next quarter? What am I going to do next year? And I think it's fine to look down the road, but man, dude, what are you going to do right now? How many people can you call right now and ask for help? Whatever it is, sales or a reference or whatever it is. And so I think having a healthy dose of fear can sometimes help get things real close, real quick. Like everyone's had a scare on the roads, and your adrenaline spikes.
You're not tired anymore.
Oh,
yeah.
Dude, and you're like laser focused for like that 1 second. Like you are ready to roll. And so business gives you maybe more than we probably need, but man, getting real clear real quick is super helpful.
And I know that I don't know who said it first. I think I always say Bill Gates said it, but I think he was quoting somebody else. But when he said people grossly overestimate what they can do in 1 year, but grossly underestimate what they can do in 10. And it is so true. If every year I don't quite get to my goals, but if you would ask me 10 years ago, will I be here? No chance, like there's no way.
That is very, very well said. I think I've heard that. I don't know who said it, but I'm glad you shared it. I wrote that down. It's like, okay, I got to look into that one. That is a good one for sure. Well, it's kind of that time. Well, actually, we should close with one thing about the collective. So for the audience listening, Stacy's a rare 2-time guest in Q1 because he's down in LA. So we're going to you'll be the last guest that we have in Q1 actually. And we'll check in on we didn't talk a lot today about the Curious Builder collectives. If you're interested, obviously we'll have everything in Stacy's and Alair's in the show notes. And if you are on the West Coast, or we're actually in 7 states, but we can talk on the next episode more about the Curious Builder collectives and Stacy's role in it. We'll probably save that for the next episode. But it's your turn to leave a question for the next guest, Stacy. What question would you like the next guest to answer?
What is your exit strategy?
Ooh, that's a good one.
Make sure they know I'm the one who asked that so that they reach out if they don't have one.
Well, it's funny you say that. So like when you were saying that, like I was already going through like, okay, because I've been building for 21 years, and about 5-6 years ago, I thought about doing a name change right before I came down to Contractor Coalition. We had just won Builder of the Year in 2019 or 2020. I can't remember. The COVID time warp changed my reality time stamp. And I'm like, why did I ever think naming a company after my name was that's the dumbest thing and everyone in America seems to do it, probably because everyone does it. We keep doing it. And so it's like, first of all, Mark D. Williams Custom Homes, like, could you have, I mean, the stadium isn't big enough to fit that name. Like, I love like a short, very simple name. And so I didn't know anything about branding or any of that stuff. And not just a brand is going to sell it. Like, you need systems and processes. So sure. As I went through this whole process, the company I was working with was like, and I got great advice from a local mentor. And I said, what do I do? He's like, well, you have a 3-generation name, so people know your name. So know that if you're changing it, that there's that. But he goes, honestly, if your name was changed, could you sell your business? I'm like, no, because Brad Levitt had just told me, after being at Contractor Coalition, do you have a job or a business? I'm like, crap, I have a job. I don't even have a business. And so I was like, well, no, it's no more sellable. And so, now I got to figure out how to get that, those systems in place like we were talking about. So I found this Alair system, like I'm going to dig into it. You and I are going to have a chat offline because I'm very intrigued, if nothing else, to be a brand ambassador for you with the podcast and just understand it. I'm always just very interested in how that all works, because we're giving EOS a very serious look.
You don't do EOS now?
No.
Oh, it's life-changing. If you don't do anything else with your business, and I should be selling EOS. Maybe I should get a code or something where I get kicked back on this, but I don't. It changed. I switched to EOS long before I was with Alair, and it's a struggle. You got to stick to it. You got to ride it out because it's clunky for a while. Hire a integrator,
an implementer.
Implementer. Hire an implementer and work with them and just stick to it. It changes the way you do business. It's probably the biggest, maybe even bigger than joining Alair. The biggest like benefit.
I mean, there's a local lumber company, another local builder I'm friends with, and like it's one of those things. It's like, when do I prioritize it? And the answer is now. The sooner the better. And we have a lot of pieces ready. I mean, like I said, well, this isn't about me. So anyway, I will. We actually have an interview with an EOS implementer. Someone it's funny, how like sometimes they just have to. I guess it's sales in reverse. Sometimes people just have to call you on the right day. Like for years, this EOS implementer would call me every quarter. Like, are you ready? No. And then like just like literally last week, someone just sent me an email like, hey, we're going through EOS. I think you'd love this guy, and it just hit me at the right time. I'm like, let's do this. Set it up. So I have a meeting with the implementer here locally, and I just want to kind of get into it. And now that I have my team is so healthy. I think when I looked at it before, my team was not the right team. There was a lot of other things going on. So now that is like rock solid, I think now I'm ready.
That's the same philosophy I have with architects. We call on architects, hey, just checking in, how you doing? And you never or almost never get a project. You meet an architect, you have a really good conversation. They say, oh yeah, we'll send you something if we get it. Okay, great. You never hear from those people again. In 3 weeks or a month, when they get that project, they forgot all about it. But if you accidentally call them when that project is sitting on their desk and they're like, oh, actually, and they're looking around, actually, I do have one for you. And you're like, bingo, but it's just the right time. You got to call it the right time. That's sales. Like,
Yeah.
half of it is right time, right
You're going to be
place.
down at IBS, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
All right. I'll see you in a couple weeks. Thank you very much for coming on. And audience, if you're interested to hear more, we'll have everything in the show notes. And thanks for tuning in to your Curious Builder podcast.
Thank you.
Thanks for tuning in to the Curious Builder podcast. If you like this episode, do us a favor, share it with 3 other business owners. The best way that we can spread what we're doing is by word of mouth. And with your help, we can continue to help other curious builders expand their business. Please share it with your friends, like and review online, and thanks again for tuning in.